Okay, so the first question I had for you is how long you have worked in the information security area?
Well, I must admit I'm an old guy. I started in information security in 1970. I spent 10 years in the Army Security Agency. And there I was an electronic warfare, electronic countermeasure systems repairman. I've fixed anything electronic. In fact,
Wow.
I repaired a computer by replacing a single transistor. When I was teaching classes, I actually built a computer just with chips and wire wrapped the chips together to make a computer. I actually left the Army Security Agency thinking there was nothing electronic I couldn't fix. So I did that for 10 years, and then I got out and I was a contractor to the National Security Agency, and then a contractor to NASA for several years. In my latest contractor role at NASA at Johnson Space Center, I was on the team that designed and created the first local area network for the Mission Control Center there at Johnson Space Center. So, so basically, I'm saying I had a very technical foundation.
Can I ask you a question? So,
sure.
When somebody like you, like when you start making these computers out of scratch, did you get some kind of training? How did you learn? Did it just come naturally that you just had this natural understanding of how things work, or how did that start for you?
It was all training from the beginning. Actually, when I built the computer with just out of chips, I was teaching a class in the electronics course in the Army on logic and logic systems. I was teaching students about AND gates and OR gates and wiring them together to build things like calculators and stuff. And that was about the time that the 8080 chip came out, which was an 8-bit computer on a chip. And I used that chip and wired it with memory chips and timing circuitry and other things that I learned how to do just to prove that I could do it. So
this is amazing.
And the interesting thing about the program, the network at Johnson Space Center was an interesting challenge, because there it wasn't just use the latest protocols and connect computers, because all the protocols were brand new. And then one of the specifications in the design was within 1/10 of a second of the flight director hitting the abort button, that command needs to be executing in the mission operations computer. Well, that caused a little bit of a problem, because the most popular networking protocol at the time was what we call Ethernet, CSMA-CD, and if you have a lot of activity on that network, the network just dies. So we couldn't depend on that. So we actually had to create a special protocol so that we could execute that command within 1/10 of a second to abort the mission if need be. Wow. So that was, like I said, my background was very technical, a lot of fun. NASA liked what they saw me doing, and they hired me as an employee. And then as an employee at NASA, it was the late 80s, late 80s. It was like viruses were brand new. And I ended up creating the security program for mission operations there at Johnson Space Center. So that was a lot of fun. I did that. I later did some penetration testing in the early 90s before red teams were known. I've created 4 other information security programs. So I've been around the block a couple of times.
Like my friend said, you are an encyclopedia of information security. 50 years. 50 years of work. Okay, thank you very much, Rich, for sharing this. And the second question of our interview is, well, I guess you covered most of it, most of the second question, but let's about the books. So I saw that on Amazon about 5 books. Is there any more or less than I see on Amazon?
Well, actually, I didn't cover some of the things you that you were talking about achievements. I've been a past international president of the Information Systems Security Association, which is worldwide organization for security professionals. And there I've become a distinguished fellow and a member of the ISSA honor roll, but I'm also a member of the Information Security Hall of Fame. In 2021, the ISC Squared organization gave me the Hal Tipton Lifetime Achievement Award for my industry. I was pretty excited about that. Now, in talking about NASA, the program that I created there at Johnson Space Center, the astronauts ended up giving me a silver Snoopy. It's like a lapel pin. In fact, I don't know if you can see it or not, but it's a little Snoopy lapel pin. It's the only award the astronauts give, and my lapel pin actually flew on a mission. So they gave me that to thank me for creating a program that was focused on keeping them alive in outer space. Wow. So at the same time, the NASA administrator came down to Houston and gave my team a special award for doing my program and avoiding over $25 million in costs by doing a risk-based program, which to me was just a common sense way of doing things at the time. But you mentioned about my books. Yes, I have 5 published books. First, I have 3 in what I call my Cybersecurity SAM series of books. They are a series of books. I don't know if you've ever heard of Nancy Drew or the cartoon Scooby-Doo. It's kind of like a mystery whodunit book. It's the series of stories about a young teenager who ends up working with the FBI, working with authorities to solve cybercrime. So, and all of the stories in my books are based on real security events that I have been aware of over the years.
So cool. I like I said, I will purchase all of your books and make sure to read all of them.
So it was a lot of fun writing these books. Actually, book number 4 that's still on the drawing board right now is called I'm Back. And if you've ever heard of like Arnold Schwarzenegger, famous for his phrase "I'm back," well, this story is about 2 years ago. There was in the Exchange email system, there was a vulnerability that was found that then even after the servers were patched, the bad guys could still get back in. So that's the foundation for that 4th book, for example. Now, I have a book version 3.4 that's on my webpage, johnnysecurityseed.com, that is written specifically for students. It's called Spring Break. A lot of us, when I would give presentations to schools, a lot of the students would say, "How do I get into this field?" And so I wrote this book where Sam, the hero, solves the problem of the day, but he also has a conversation with an FBI agent of how do I get into information security. So I talk about the different organizations and the military and technical training and things you should consider to get into the cybersecurity world. The fun thing is when I was writing this series of books, I took notice of all these emails, phone scams, message scams, and I collected them and I put them in a book, and I created that book. It's called Your Personal Information is at Risk. And this is a book just for the average person. It talks about identifying their personal information and protecting it. Anything from a birth certificate to a driver's birth certificate or military certification or certifications, storing that in a safe place. But then I get into the electronics of email and phone and messages and talk about scams, how to recognize the scams and what to do about them. That's what that book is all about. Now, after I wrote those books, I decided it was about time for me to take the advice of some of my friends and collect some of my war stories over the years. So I created a book that's called the Alchemy of Information Protection. And this is a collection of my war stories, but the book is written for two flavors. First of all, it's written for the non-cybersecurity executive, the regular chief information officer, to give him an idea of what is information and why it's important and why he or she should consider protecting it. And then the second half of the book is really a map for the cybersecurity professional of how to create that program for that executive. And it takes them through the steps that they need to think about to create this program. In fact, in that book, there is a chart that I spent over 15 years creating that I call the complete system. And it shows the inputs, the outputs, the risk, and the constant monitoring. So that's the book that I'm most recently proud of. Is it's a professional book. It's called The Alchemy of Information Protection. Should point out all my books are available just about any place, Amazon. But if you go to the publisher, bookbaby.com, and you use the code JSS1, you can get any of my ebooks or print books at 10% off. So, and you'll find that my books are not expensive. They were written for the purpose of being out there to influence people. I'm not looking to retire off of the income from these books.
And let me be the one to thank you for all your work that you have done for this, because this there's probably still people that aren't born yet that will they will be kept safe by reading your book. Somebody will read the books and tell them about. So it's a big deed that you have done. So I want to thank you, you know, for your work.
I enjoy doing it, and I thank you, and I hope that they do, because I'm retired now, so I depend on other people keeping me safe.
Yeah. And so everything that you have covered, kind of for our viewers to understand this, you know, this 50 years of practical work in this field gives Rich the authority to answer the next questions, I believe personally. So the next question is,